This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, our special guest is the founder of Front Yard Fantasy and the Chief Technology Officer at BDGE. It's John Luke Garofalo. Welcome into the podcast, my friend. Yes,
It
sir.
is so good to see you. So good to be here. People probably don't know that you were my first friend in the industry.
It's funny the way that you say that because it's true. Like we entered the FSGA in 2019, New York City, and we were kind of herded together as like an introductory group at that conference, and there you are, man. And we've been connected ever since. I love it.
Yeah, you were like the first person I walked up to, and you've just been part of that journey. I feel like few people have really seen my journey from start to finish in this industry. You're part of like a very select group.
It's an honor because I've seen the growth and the development and the changes and where you are now, and
You saw how stupid we were.
It makes me proud. No, I think it was so
now.
Cool. No, I love it. I love the way that you entered there, and it was like, hey, we got a concept, we got a brand that we'd like to get going. Let's see where it goes, and it's evolved a ton, and we'll talk about that for sure. But one thing is very clear is that in everything you do, you have an extreme passion for content creation and for brand building. Where does your entrepreneurial spirit come from?
Oh man, I don't know where it comes from. I don't even know if it's something that I learned over time, that I learned I liked, or if it was something that was innate in me. I don't know exactly where it came from, but I suspect that a lot of it came from influence from my family, like my brothers and stuff growing up, just putting stuff in my ear, like, oh, you should go do this thing, and older brothers will convince you to do anything.
Oh, for sure. Now, obviously, a lot of that foundation is just like you got a passion for sports. Where did that start? I know you're a major Ravens fan. It's been a tough week probably,
Yes,
and a Clemson Tiger for sure through and through. Where did your passion for sports come from?
Oh, man, I played a lot of sports growing up, but I think I got really into it watching my older brother was a walk-on center for the University of Maryland, and he's 14 years older than I am. So I'm a little guy. I'm like 5 years old around this time. But going and watching him play at the University of Maryland was like mind-blowing. It completely changed my relationship with sports because I saw this person I knew playing it at that level. So I got really into sports. I had a bunch of other interests too. I'm definitely not one of those just like solely sports kids, but yeah, sports has just been there since the start.
That's awesome. Who are your all-time favorite players? Like, I guess Ravens or any athlete, any sport.
Oh man, that you gave me so many options. I'm like terrified to pick now. Oh my gosh. All right. Favorite athletes of all time. Ray Lewis has got to be up there. Yeah, just legend here in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Man. I'm gonna go oldie because this is around that time where I was 5 and I was like a big fan of Maryland because of my brother. I became a huge fan of the Maryland basketball team at that time.
Okay.
And there was a group. I can't remember all the players in this group, but the group was like fantastic. It was Juan Dixon and DJ Strawberry. And yeah, I can't remember the other guys in there, but I was huge fans of these guys as they went into the league. I know Juan Dixon did some stuff. I don't know how DJ Strawberry did, how his career panned out.
I love that. I love, I can recall, as a kid, like just like the NCAA tournament and really getting captured with some of the college players, and some of them didn't turn out. Like I was a huge Harold Miner guy. He didn't turn out in the NBA, but I still got those players close to my heart. And I can imagine with the Maryland connection, that must have been a really, really cool experience.
It's mostly Clemson players now. Like the current players are all, a lot of times it's just players I watched while I was at Clemson, or now Ravens, players, the Lamars.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now I know the wounds are fresh. Do you think Lamar Jackson's gonna deliver a Super Bowl to Baltimore at some point?
I think he will. We've seen significant improvement, which I feel like is really the most important factor you want to see in any player is like progress. Are they recognizing the things that they're weak at and improving on those things? Lamar Jackson's done that to a tremendous degree throughout his career, right? They talked about it all season, how he is no longer running all the time. He's able to hang in the pocket. He's making these throws that he probably couldn't make before a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And he's already just such a unique and multifaceted talent that it's hard for me to believe that, he doesn't get close. Like, he doesn't bring one home at some point, given how much time is left in his career.
It's true. No, I can see that. AFC is going to be tough, though. That's
know.
nothing changing there. But it had to have been devastating. Number one seed expectations. Like, was that pretty tough?
It was devastating. Detail your devastation to us.
Tell me about your loss.
Tell me about your painful moment. It was devastating. I was in New York last week. I came in Saturday evening, and the city was electric. Like, it was vibrating with energy. There are flags everywhere. People got flags coming out of like holes on their cars I didn't even know existed. There were like 16 flags coming out of this car. All these houses had flags or banners hanging from them. And the turnaround was quick. They were all gone. That energy was gone by the end of the next day.
I mean, that's the fun stuff with sports, though, right? Is that bringing people together and obviously things happen. And you also I will say I think I'm piling on here. But as a Seahawks fan, can you tell me what we're getting in Mike Macdonald?
Man, I think that was a great hire. Kind of feels like, you ever watch Harry Potter?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
This isn't specific to Harry Potter, but like the Phoenix bird in Harry Potter. Yeah. I feel like that's what the Seahawks are doing here. Like, Pete Carroll just down into flames and ashes, and now now they got this young coach coming in from Baltimore. Yeah, I'm excited. I'd be excited as a Seahawks fan. I feel like any franchise that is making these types of moves, where they're going for coaches who are different than what we've seen before or have some sort of unique perspective, a lot of times they're benefiting from that variance, right? From that probability that maybe this coach is something. Maybe they do have something to offer that we just haven't seen from these older coaches, right? Like the D'Amico Ryans of the world. There's so many of these young coaches over the last few years. Mike McDaniels. I'm hopeful. I think that he's a talented coach.
Yeah, and you like Seattle. You spent some time here, so you appreciate the town.
Oh, I love Seattle. I spent a summer in Pioneer Square District, right at the building next to the Seahawks Stadium. It was a summer, so there weren't any Seahawks games, but I absolutely love that city.
Good. Well, hopefully it works out for the new regime. And like you said, like they could have gone chalk and gone like Dan Quinn and just kind of kept everything going the same direction. It was a natural fit, but this is a good one. I like it.
Dan Quinn would have been so boring. Like, just so I would have been just so sad as a Seahawks fan if that had occurred.
Well, congratulations to the Commanders. That's your new head coach.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. So when it comes to sports fan now, like, do you have a favorite moment, like a favorite experience you've had?
Yeah, I think my top sports moment, as you're talking as a fan, right? As a spectator.
Yeah, just as a fan, loving the games.
I think, so when Clemson won the national championship in 2017, it was the peak. And it was the peak because the year before, it was my senior year, and we played Alabama in the national title game. And both games were two of the best football games I've ever watched. They were incredible. But we lost the first year. We lost by a tiny margin, super tiny margin. Talk about like depressing cities. Walking out of the downtown Clemson bars with like hundreds and hundreds of students, dead quiet because we lost. And it was the strangest kind of juxtaposition of super crowded area, not a sound. Wild.
Yeah.
But the next year we won, and it was a Deshaun Watson to Hunter Renfrow Philly special before Philly special was called Philly special. Throw to Hunter Renfrow at the very last second to win the game. It was incredible.
That's special. I can relate to that loss because I did the Super Bowl with the Malcolm Butler and all that. So it was the same thing. So the eeriest thing leaving that stadium, because it was vast majority Seahawks fans, right? So
Right.
expecting it, more Super
Expecting
Bowl
it to
hype
win,
and
yeah.
excitement,
Yeah.
and it was just dead. But
And
it's good to get those good experiences too. I've always a bucket list item for me is just to kind of attend like some of the major, college towns around the country, and experience like Clemson. So
yeah.
on my bucket list is right now it's to attend a Clemson game with JL.
Yes.
And you got to show me the way. Show me what it's like.
We might have to make this happen because Simon and I were just talking about going down this season.
All right, and then
definitely
maybe
gotta
we can put some pizza in some bushes and get
yep.
some after the game.
Yeah, apparently the Little Caesars isn't there anymore, but that's fine. There's a much better pizza place at Clemson we'll go to.
Oh, perfect. Sounds good. Let's do it. And now when it comes to fantasy football, like when did you discover fantasy sports?
I played a little bit in high school. Well, I remember my mom taught me about fantasy football because I was like a kid. I was like 7 or something, and we're walking through the grocery store, and I saw Fantasy Football magazine. Which now that I just am connecting this, talking to you right now, Kevin, I wonder if those magazines that I was looking at when I was a little kid was written by anybody I know now, because I feel like I know a lot of those magazine guys now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was. Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't play until later in high school, and that was just really a for fun league with my boys from high school. That was the toe dip. And then later on in college, it was my junior year, and Simon, who's my co-founder at Frontier Fantasy, he invited me to our fraternity was putting together a keeper league, and he invited me to join them in that league. And I was terrified because I was like, I'm gonna get up there, I'm just gonna wreck myself. Like I'm gonna get just dragged in front of everybody if I make like a stupid choice. And luckily we're all there for like the first draft, and I'm all nervous. Guy next to me takes Steve Jackson at the 102. Steve Jackson's retired at this point.
Oh man.
And so I'm like, "Woo, all right, we're good. We are good. I'm good to go." And that's where I really started to really enjoy fantasy football and play it, not just, for fun with my buddies, but I started to really like see the agency in it.
Sure. And not try not to lose, but actually try to win, right?
Yeah, and it was a keeper league, and I drafted I think it was Zeke, or no, it was Stephon Diggs. I think that was Stephon Diggs' rookie year, and he was not highly touted going into the draft, but I knew him because we went to high school together, and so I knew he like how talented he was. So I scooped up Stephon Diggs like in the 3rd or 4th round or something stupid like that. And I was sitting there just like, all right, like it's not going as bad as I thought. We're doing okay. I got Zeke. I got Diggs.
I love it. What do you love most about the game of fantasy? Like just playing the experience.
Oh man, I feel like there are so many games out there, right? There's so many games like fantasy football out there. They're essentially just game mechanics you can apply to a bunch of different environments, but I haven't found many games that have the type of effect that fantasy does, like in the context. And so let me explain what I mean by that. Fantasy football is essentially just made up game mechanics around a sport. But because of these various aspects of the game and those mechanics, and when those mechanics happen, it creates these crazy kind of beneficial secondary effects, like keeping you in touch with your friends, keeping you connected with friend groups, or having an external trigger or reason to start a conversation with somebody that you know. It can trigger you into it can be the catalyst for you starting to fall in love with the sport, or even getting interested in a sport in the first place. And I just found that to be magical in my own experience. Like I was an NFL fan before, but not like I am now. Like I was definitely for my franchise and like would only sometimes pay attention. And then fantasy gave me a reason to want to watch all these different games or all these different teams and get involved in the culture of this game. And that's just magical. The fact that it's so seamless, or it's not a ton of friction to do, and it's just really a well-balanced game. It's a ton of fun to play.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer. It's magical on all fronts, right? The competition, the excitement, the way it affects your game watching, but then the connections, the bonds, keeping people together, and I like when you say that you can just bring it up with somebody.
Yeah.
even if it's a stranger, like if you get a sense that they might play fantasy, it's something that can like connect you and get a conversation going. So that's a great answer.
There are so many stories like that I have where it's like, for instance, you met Josh, who used to be one of my co-hosts on our fantasy football game show. Josh and I knew each other because Maria, my wife or girlfriend at the time, her sorority and his fraternity at their school at Towson would always go out on the weekends together. They'd always like do stuff. It was just like similar grouping. I would go up to Towson on the weekends to go visit sometimes, and I'd be hanging out with. So I'd met Josh like several times prior to one time. I don't even remember how it came up, but somehow we got on the topic of fantasy football. It popped up, and then he's like, "Oh, do you listen to any podcasts about it?" He's like, "Yes." "Do you listen to any podcasts about it?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Which ones do you listen to?" "Which ones do you listen to?" And then we started going up with like fantasy footballers, CBS, like fantasy bro. We're like, we start geeking out, and all of a sudden, this guy who like I had interacted before, we'd been nice, like friendly before.
Yeah.
It switched and we started becoming just friends, separate from everything else, like just actual friends. And every time we got together after that, we go, let's talk fantasy, right? And that's just so cool to have that type of like outlet, in these situations with other people that love it.
Yeah, it breaks down barriers, right? It's a great way to do it. I love it. Now, do you have like a primary home league, one league that is like your main league?
I have two. I have one main dynasty league, which is like 10-man, all people who are really into fantasy. That has been going. It's all themed off of the backyard sports games. So it's like backyard football league. Every team is from like backyard football.
That's awesome. And is there anybody in your leagues, like in all the leagues you play, whether they're industry or a home league, that like you consider like your biggest rival? Like when you face
Simon.
them, is it Simon? It's Simon.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have guessed that, but yeah.
It is so annoying playing him because he's
really
such an idiot. He's just such a stupid idiot.
Oh, I love it. Do you have any favorite settings or formats that you feel like are your favorite ways to play fantasy?
Dynasty is definitely my favorite. I love the strategy of Dynasty. It is the one that, I probably, if I had to choose any league format to only play going forward, it would probably be Dynasty. Dynasty isn't, I don't think, as fun of a game to play as some of the other formats. Like there's less to do most of the time. And so from a strategy perspective, I prefer Dynasty, but I think for most, I think you need both.
That's a great answer. I can see that. I mean, I think, like that home league, the redraft, the live draft, or if you don't have to do live drafts, but like, getting together with the league and your friends and connected, like a redraft season does it all for you. But then Dynasty, like, yeah, you're right. Game theory and just really kind of, strategizing, with yourself on how you want to construct this brings a whole nother element. So you're right. Having multiple leagues, multiple formats definitely mixes it up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So when did you decide, and like what inspired you to start creating content in fantasy?
Oh man, we started creating content because, let me back up. We didn't get into this industry thinking that we would be content creators. That wasn't our intention. You might remember this, because when we met, that wasn't even, I don't think, in our mind. I mean, I guess it was in our mind because that's who we were. Like we looked up to a lot of content creators in the space, but we just didn't really see ourselves as content creators. We were building products at the time, which is where my background before the industry came in. And we were building a community analysis tool where you could go and track your sentiment of players and follow your friends and see how their opinions of players are changing on a more granular scale over time. So we started doing content about maybe 10 months to a year into going full time in the industry. We had moved away from the community analysis platform and started working on a trade negotiation platform, and working on that pretty heavily that whole season, which is the 2020 season. But what we realized is that trading was a tough problem to get people. Trading was a tough problem because everybody had it, And it was a painful problem for most people, but they just didn't think about it that often. They didn't think about trading unless somebody else made a trade. And so it made it just tough to like start there. And so we took a step back and we were like, all right, we talked to some people we had networked with, talked to in the industry. And we're like, well, it takes so long to get each of these iterations of the product out. Like, what can we do every day that starts building leverage? And the idea there was like, well, let's start doing content. We can figure out something that, you know, makes it so we can do both and kind of helps both sides. So we started doing a podcast, and that was March 2020.
Yeah. So when we first met in 2019, you went to FSGA, you know, with that trade, you know, product.
Yeah.
And that's where you thought you were going. What first, like what made you go to FSGA? Like what inspired that? Because that's a big commitment, especially, you know, on a brand that's first being created. What brought you to FSGA?
So I knew I wanted to start a business, and I was trying to figure out which industry I wanted to start it in. I was working at a startup at the time as a software engineer, with the hypothesis that I would learn enough working there to be able to get to the point that I could start my own business. And as I'm going through that checklist at the time where I'm like, all right, I feel like it's probably time I should start working on some of this stuff, I'm like looking at the fantasy industry, and I'm really into fantasy right now. I'm already making fantasy products for myself. I ended up making like basically the footballers UDK, like their live drafting feature. Before they had that, I just made it for myself because I needed it to draft.
Love it.
And so I'm already making these things. And as I'm going and I'm like reading and learning from these, you know, people who have authority in startups and stuff, I'm like, man, this is checking all the check boxes in my list, this industry, this community, in that they are underserved, they're growing, I know them well, right? Like I'm part of them, which makes it easy. It's fun. It's like related to something I care about, and is creative. And it felt like the path. And so I reached out to, I asked a question on the Footballers Footcast about FSGA. I'd heard them talk about it. Maybe like, I think I researched it and asked them like, hey, thinking about going to FSGA. What do you think? And they gave me such a good answer. Like they gave me like a really detailed, thought out answer, which I proceeded to selectively listen to the things that, you know, supported my desire to go to this conference. And then I reached out to Andy Holloway after they gave me that like 2-minute response on the stream. And he was generous enough to hop on a call with me for like an hour, and answer questions I had about that, like whether it was worth it, like different, just really like I just peppered him with questions about getting into the industry. And after that, I was like, all right, well, if like there's several things that are going to make it so tough for me to go, if I can, you know, figure out how to make it cheaper, if I can, you know, change my planned family trip to Costa Rica that overlaps with it, and, you know, I can change my flight with no cost, then I'll go. All three things happened. And so I was like, all right, let's go.
That's awesome. Now you did recently post about Andy saying that, you know, he's one of the sharpest creator entrepreneurs that you've ever met. You know, what have you taken most from his inspiration and the advice that you got from him?
Man, Andy gave me such good advice in those early days. And the reason I know that, or like I've held on to that, is because I can tell how a quality of advice by how often I'll return to it, right? Or need to return to it. And there's a ton of advice, ton of tidbits that he gave me at that time that I continued to use as I went through the industry. Things like, you know, I remember I asked him about, at the conference, like, you know, they kept talking about all these people who would come up and be like, be trying to sell something or be kind of like they were just like being like pitchy. They were pitching something and they weren't really doing it right. So I asked them like, how do I avoid getting perceived like that? Like I'm just coming in, I'm the new guy being annoying. And he was like, you can't, to some degree. He's like, you have to just keep showing up. He's like, listen, every year, every one of these conferences, people come in, they come and then they show up, they have this new thing, and then they don't show up again. And he's like, so people don't want to, you know, they spend a lot of money to be there. They don't want to waste their time investing like their limited time that they spent money on in somebody who might not be worth the investment. He's like, but if you keep showing up and you just keep showing up, people will be like, oh, that guy keeps being here. Let me go let me figure out what his deal is. And he could not have been more right. That's precisely how it happened.
That's awesome. No, that's great. It's great advice. And I've seen it. I've seen, again, I've attended, since you've been attending, and I've seen that, like, from the beginning, where it's like, wow, you don't know anybody. And then you just kind of continue to meet people and connect with people. So it definitely was great advice. And
Yeah.
I've seen it happen. I witnessed it. So that's awesome.
And that was just like a piece of it. I think the thing that really stood out to me coming from the startup world into this industry was that Andy he's an entrepreneur. This industry, I think, sometimes gets like a little confused with all that of like creator, entrepreneur sort of stuff. And the thing that really stood out in talking to footballers is like they know business, they know the startup stuff. They're deep in that, and they're applying those principles in the fantasy space, which is just something I admire.
Yeah, and they're obviously their success, their journey definitely is a great example of their understanding of this whole process. So
Facts.
they're exceptional. They've inspired so many people. Now, when it comes to like front yard fantasy, again, most people know it as the game shows and all that.
Yeah.
So what has that experience been like for you? The connections you've made, the relationships, the amount of like just the fun that you've had with the team.
Oh, it's been everything. We didn't expect the content thing to work in the way that it did. We designed it as like a networking flywheel. We thought, well, we want to serve content creators or analysts in this space. Well, why don't we create content where we're meeting new ones every day? And it kind of like, two birds, one stone type of deal.
Yeah.
And so it was a flywheel where every day we were creating content, hopefully building an audience from that, but then also meeting either somebody new in the space or, building up an existing relationship. But what I didn't expect was how much the creativity and the craft actually was going to speak to us, and how much like that was actually something that Simon and I, in hindsight, is something that now I can see that we had all the markings of creators, right? We just didn't quite see ourselves as that way. And so, the whole experience, I think, from the game show and the content perspective has just been like the coolest little excursion, unexpected excursion in my career, where I've gotten to build up the skill set that I really cherish and can use in a bunch of different situations that I didn't really expect to.
Yeah, and it's fantastic. If anybody out there does not watch these shows or hasn't chimed in or tuned in, you're missing a lot, because it's just a good time. It's a great way to connect with people if you've been on the show. I mean, I've experienced it. It's so much fun. But just as a fan, like, I love your fan base, like the listeners,
Yeah.
or the viewers, that are there. You have a loyal group of people that are just constantly watching those shows and enjoying it, and that includes Scott Fish.
Yeah, the fish. And I think that's definitely something that is still has not normalized for me. Doesn't matter how many people are watching, like I still can't get over the fact that like people are spending their time choosing that. And I don't know if that's maybe because like we spend so much time not having any attention or external validation. It blows my mind that the FYF chat, the audience, like cares so much about us, about what we're doing, that a lot of times they'll pop in just to tell us that they can't watch that day. And it's just like it's mind blowing to me. Like, I don't feel that type of loyalty to anybody. I will barely tell Maria if I'm not going to be home. I'm not hopping on a YouTube channel and telling y'all I'm not coming in today. You figure it out. But it's like truly humbling, and it still has just not normalized. I'm just so grateful for everybody we've gotten to meet through that medium.
Yeah, I mean, you've created something very special, so it's much appreciated. Now, let's talk a little bit about BDGE. So I love what Nick's created over the years, and like FYF, I mean, things have evolved and changed quite a bit over the years. Tell me about your role as CTO over there, and your vision for the brand moving forward.
Yeah, Nick is a dear friend of mine. I met him early on, or I guess right around the time that we were considering making that pivot to content. And I had met him because Andy had retweeted an interview they had done together, and I tuned into that interview. I was like, oh wow, this interview is like fire. They're talking about like the business stuff. Like this is my bread and butter. Let's go. And so they're sitting there, I'm watching the whole thing, and then Nick and Andy are talking about how they're hanging out after the footballer show at Gramercy Theater and at the meet and greet. And after everybody had left, it was just like them chilling. I'm like, wait a minute, I was there. I was there with like some of the Prize Picks guys. I didn't see that other guy there. It was just like this weird, mind-blowing event where I was like, this guy is lying. He's pretending to be me in this interview, and he's a phony. And so it created this whole like cognitive dissonance. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, like, I want to chat with you because he seemed like somebody who's thinking similar to me. And we hopped on a call and just hit it off right away. Just became friends and kept in touch throughout the years. And so when he had approached me about joining as a CTO, it wasn't the first time we had that conversation, but it was the first time that it was a possibility in terms of like all the cards aligning, him being there being a path there for us to even find. And so, the nice thing is I'm FYF and BDGE, largely similar businesses. And so it really, it's the existential problems that I'm in charge of solving are largely the same, which is nice because before I would do work at other companies in the industry, primarily Prize Picks was the main company I worked at. And it's not as clearly aligned. So it just caused more context switching.
Yeah, I mean, it's right up your alley. I will say I was at that theater that night, so I witnessed it. It did happen.
It did happen, yeah.
But yeah, talk to me about.
I knew you were there though, because I met you before.
Yeah. Talk to me about. No, I remember seeing Nick in line, and he's like, "I'm waiting for them after the show." I'm like, "Oh, I was gonna wait for them after the show too." So
Kevin,
very,
you could have made the connection, Kevin.
I love it. But no, so with what they're doing right now, like, talk to me a little bit about the social media stuff that they're doing, the shows that they're doing, how that's all coming together to kind of move that brand forward.
Yeah, I mean, Nick he built up a creator business, right? This is like just a very typical creator who's built enough leverage at this point that it makes sense for him to think about, okay, how do I scale this beyond myself, right? How do I build this beyond just my own channel, me talking fantasy football all day? And the community he's built over there at BDGE is formidable. Like they are loyal. It's a great audience that he's built. And so for what we're coming in and doing is essentially figuring out, all right, what elements of this can we extract, like the commonalities of success across the fantasy channel, or the trivia content, the content about content, all these different iterations of the same skill or craft. We're figuring out how to build that together and add the product element to it, the technology side of it, and then figure out how to replicate that. Because there is a ton of creators out there. There are a ton of creators out there who don't have all that leverage or bandwidth to be able to figure out all these problems. And there's just going to be more and more creators coming as we go here, with the way that the world is going. Creator economy is growing. So I think it's important problems that we're trying to solve and then, share with other people.
Well, it's fun to watch it all come together. So are you heading out there like once a month? Is that what's going on right now?
Yeah. So part of my deal, my contract is I go up to New York once a month for 2 to 3 days or so. I think Nick thinks it's a concession that I'm making, but it's truly like one of my favorite perks about the job. It's super fun, cool. Just to head up there for a few days. I don't have to live in the. I'm too big for New York City, man. I can't live there.
I love it. No, that's fun. It's fun to see it. It's fun to see people grow in this industry. Obviously, we've met a lot of people along the way, haven't we? So, what's your experience been like going to like an event like the Expo and connecting with all these people we've met over the years?
Dude, the Expo is so cool. Just I mean, I think honestly, it's even less about the expo itself and more so just the community. Like the community is unique. Like the fantasy industry is, it's close to the entertainment industry. It's like, it's kind of like tangential to the entertainment industry, but it's this weird little like kind of older but much nicer community that's semi similar to the entertainment industry. But in studying both of those industries, it's very clear that creates this very special place here in this industry, this community, where you have, you know, a lot of the people who are providing value to the fantasy managers, fantasy gamers, fantasy players, the consumers in this industry. They're all friends too, right? The people who are providing in this industry are all, there's a community there. And so I think the expo gave a physical place and didn't have a physical place for us all to gather that didn't have a price tag of $1,500. And that, you know, that FSGA does. And so that it's, you know, so happy that exists. And it's one of my favorite times I look forward to every year is like that, just everybody piling into random town in Ohio.
Canton, Ohio. Yep. Yeah. No, it's a special event for sure. And obviously, through that, you get to, you know, meet a lot of people, connect with a lot of people. And it seems like you have just a passion of helping others. I always hear stories about how, you know, people are appreciative of what you've done for them and like wisdom that you've provided in your social media. It's a treasure of great advice and, you know, wisdom. Like you deliver great content just in your tweets alone, book recommendations, all that stuff. So you clearly have a passion to like want to help others and see people find success. Where does that come from? Where does that passion to inspire others and help others come from?
I find that I love talking to people who are passionate, and it doesn't really matter what they're passionate about so much as I get genuine enjoyment out of like hearing people talk about what they are passionate about and asking questions about it and like learning about the nuance of the thing that they're passionate about. And so I think a lot of my ideas for the content that I think you're referring to here is that it's stuff that I wanted to have when I was coming up, or like I was passionate about, or it's stuff that I want to share with passionate people. Because I think something that just bothers me is that a lot of times the systems that have been set up in the world are not set up in a way that they're going to necessarily nurture that passion and that creativity. And I get really sad when I think about all the things people didn't do that we could have had. And so really a lot of it, I think, comes down to just trying to push more people to trust themselves more and see that they don't need to have a massive audience or this crazy big idea or really anything, much of anything to come show up and provide value. It's much simpler than they make it out to be. Yeah,
no, you clearly are someone that seeks knowledge, seeks growth, and loves to kind of pass that on and share it. So again, another thing that I'm appreciative of, I love it for the community. If there's a resource like you. And speaking of that, I mean, you've created like a job board, which I think is great. I posted on FF Unlimited, just a job board you put together on FYF for industry jobs. You know, again, wanting to help people find their career path. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I didn't even intend for that to be anything other than that was like a Saturday, you know, just was like, oh, this would be cool to have all the job board links to all the different brands in the space. I've spent the last 4 years really like understanding the industry, talking to people in the industry, talking to people who are often hiring or making decisions in businesses in this industry. And I've been on that side of the table at various times, either with FYF or BDGE or Prize Picks. And there is an element of this that is just common across any industry, right? Any job where there are things that you can do that give you an advantage in that game. But specifically within this industry, I think there are strategies that you can employ that give you an advantage or an edge. And so I think a lot of the job board stuff It started with just that idea of like, there's a lot of people like me in the space who want to work in the space but don't know how. I figured that out by going and working part-time at a brand or a company in the space to enough to make money so that we could self-fund our own projects while then figuring out how to build leverage. And that path is super viable, but not many people even think to go down that path. They think, I got to build it up by either all myself at first, or I got to go down a path where I'm never going to build it up by myself. And so the job board stuff is started there to help people see that path. And now we're expanding it. We're taking, it just started as like collecting all these links, and now we're expanding it to tracking a bunch of different job posts across the brands. We're moving it into its own website that you can go to, look through the different job boards, and really add value to that, whether it be like email newsletter, get some email every time there's new opportunities. It's a bunch of different ideas we want to run with, but it's largely built off the feedback we got from the community.
That's awesome. What a great resource, and it sounds like it's getting bigger and better. So I love it. That's awesome to hear. Let's dive into just a few rapid questions. I'll just rapid fire questions. I'll throw out a question. Just give me an answer. Let the viewers and listeners learn a little bit more about you. What do you enjoy? What do you enjoy most about what you're doing right now in the industry?
I'm really enjoying helping like the younger folks. Like there's like a group between like 16 to 24-year-olds who are for some reason or another are all like I've recently been helping out or been in a position to help guide, and I've just really enjoyed that process. It's super fun because, like I said, I'm not that far removed from myself being in their shoes.
That's awesome. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of sports?
I like reading. I like improv. I like pickleball. Oh wait, that's a sport. I still like pickleball.
That's okay. That's good.
Yeah. All right. I gave you 3.
No, that's a perfect one. Yeah. So pickleball. I mean, like outside of like just major sports content.
Oh, I got you.
Or
watching sports. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you were questioning if pickleball was actually a sport. It definitely is.
Real?
What's your all-time favorite TV show?
Adventure Time.
Okay. How about an all-time favorite movie?
Inception. Christopher Nolan. Saw it 6 times in theaters.
Nice. How about an all-time favorite like sports movie?
42. Chadwick Boseman, Jackie Robinson.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. Very good. Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
49ers are going to knock the Chiefs in their mouth.
No bias there. No wanting to deliver anything special to Kansas City. Okay.
Zero bias coming into that analysis.
How about next season? Who's going to be in the AFC, NFC? Who's facing it, and who's winning it?
I think Jets are going to be winning the AFC.
That's
I
awesome.
want to say Ravens. That might be too chalk. I think Jets could come back. NFC, I'm gonna go Lions again. I think Dan Campbell is like, I don't know. He might be building up to like a villain story arc. He's starting he's got like a Two-Face thing going on where like he's starting real nice, and then I could see he gets a couple more losses or like just like dramas or whatever, and he got to start going the wrong direction.
That's a good one. So who's winning, Detroit or the Jets?
Oh, Detroit.
Okay. I love that. I'm a lifetime Barry Sanders fan, so I'll take that for sure.
Nice.
What are you most grateful for at this time?
Being alive. Yeah, just get to wake up and talk to you. I get to be here. This truly.
That's the best answer there could be. I love it. Just living life. I love it.
Yep.
Obviously in this journey, you've met a lot of people. A lot of people have impacted you. Can you name just a few people that have played a massive role in your growth in this industry?
Oh man, this is so hard. All right, I already mentioned Andy. I'll stop talking about him. The next person I should definitely mention is Nando DeFino. Nando I met at that first conference as well in New York, and I did not know who he was when I met him, but he just pretty much from the start became one of my closest friends in the space and has helped me without question the whole time. It's just he's truly a special guy. It sounded weird saying special guy like that. I'm not gonna say that.
No, I love it. I get it.
The other another person I mentioned is JJ Zacharyson, who I feel like I met later than a lot of the folks I've mentioned in this story. But yeah, he is someone who a lot of our big breaks and a lot of our like big moments where we took a step forward was JJ kind of subtly guiding it. And he is awesome. We got the opportunity Simon and I co-hosted a waiver wire show with him last year for FanDuel. And that was just one of those moments where it's like, holy shit, I did not expect this. I did not expect to be hosting a show with that guy when I started this.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, he's awesome.
So yeah, I got to shout him out. And then I shout out Adam Wexler as well, CEO of PrizePicks. Without his help, I don't think I would be in this industry right now. It's just, working with PrizePicks. First of all, he was the reason I was able to go to that conference, that first FSGA conference, because he made it so it was cheaper because he was a board member. And then the second part is that he introduced me to his CTO, who became a close friend of mine, and which led to an opportunity where I was able to leave my full-time job and start working in the fantasy space. So truly forever grateful to that dude.
Great list of people, and I love each one has a unique story wrapped in there. Anything we haven't covered before we close things out on this episode? I was going to ask, obviously, a lot of people want to go in this industry, want to follow the kind of same footsteps that you've created. Any advice for people that want to get more involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Just start getting involved. You definitely don't need anybody's permission to just start finding ways to be generous and be valuable or be useful. You can start right now, and the more action you take more frequently, the more you will see that it accelerates, it compounds on itself. So it's crucial to start building that leverage now. Start doing something. Start offering help to people. Start just talking to people, getting involved, but just show up.
There you go. Great advice. Thank you so much, JL. Absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm going to make sure that share your links because people got to find you. They got to get that inspiration, all that wisdom you drop out there. So pleasure to have you on, my friend. Yeah, no, pleasure to have you on. Look forward to everything you're doing this next year, and I look forward to seeing you in Canton.
Yeah, man. Thank you for doing these. These interviews are incredible, and I've talked a lot about these different resources that were crucial to me coming up, but this right here, these are the pieces that are going to be crucial to the next people coming up, the next people trying to figure out how to do this stuff. So thank you for doing this, Kevin. And appreciate you having me.
It's an honor and a privilege. And again, happy to have you on here. We'll have to do it again.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.